I suppose it's the question of what was abuse like by a Finnish psychotherapist. Um, this is all protected by Valvira. Um, well, first, the fraudulent hate crime eviction by the Passanins. The person in question, um, they forced their way into helping me, but they didn't. They only did so because they thought they were being part of a crime because they were too lazy to read the paperwork and see that there was the bank statements and everything was in order, and I was just trying to get my life back, and that I was a victim of a hate crime. They turned around to me, this Helsinki Finnish psychotherapist, and was like, "This is very exciting. This turns me on. This is really exciting." And I was like, "What?" And she genuinely thought she was involved in some sort of caper, and that was very distressing. I tried to get her to do it all legal and put it through as court support as a mediator, but that was all just abuse as well. All fraud. It was fraud from the beginning. She recorded phone calls with the Passanins, then destroyed some of the evidence, then started using the phone calls abusively, denying they existed, refusing to give them to me. That's all recorded. It was a nightmare. Like, this person shouldn't be a practicing psychotherapist. They are pure driven evil. There was no reason to do any of that. Like with the thing, they they wanted full control. They wanted control over a person to do whatever they wanted. As and when they wanted. It was like something worse than like military training. It was horrific. They wrapped me up in loan fraud. Then it was a fake employment disability rehabilitation scheme, which everyone's turned a blind eye to. It's really fucking weird because there's tax fraud involved in there, and she's committed various levels of financial fraud and doesn't really give a shit. I wouldn't have accepted any of the loan agreements that we entered into if there hadn't been the disability rehabilitation work scheme that was supposed to be put through Kella. That's what she was promised. So I mean, it's cliche human trafficking, but this doesn't matter in Finland, where slavery is apparently legal. That became punitive starvation. She demanded full control over my legal affairs. That she got to decide what rights I had, which was none. None. Anyone could break the law against me. I had no nothing. She would let anyone do anything to me. She got rear-ended in a car crash. Refused to phone the police. Refused to take me to hospital. I was left with 3 herniated discs. That was a horrific time. She was violent all the time as well. She used to kick me, punch me, threaten me. She used to put her fist up to my mouth, threaten to punch me in the mouth, and I just had to keep. I was like twice her size, and I had to keep asking her to stop, and that I had severe PTSD, and that it was really upsetting. And I didn't find it funny. There was just this constant violence from her. She's a violent person. I don't know. I don't know what her other relationships are like, but this is a psychotherapist. She. I mean, for anyone who's going to this psychotherapy clinic in Helsinki, there's no privacy either. They she would upload files for patients to my Dropbox. I don't know whether like she meant to or anything, but that's breaches of privacy. That's laziness. So I have patient files there. So if you went to that place in Hakanimi, I could have your files. Think about that, Finland. This is this crazy lady. She would involve me in this one involved me in the treatment of her patients. She would ask me how I thought something should be treated, and I always found that kind of weird. But I would answer for some of them. I just it was weird. That's weird as fuck. I'm not a trained psychotherapist. um, she lied to get into relationship, so I suppose it would be like rape by deception. I asked the person were they in any way like specialized in trauma, and they said no when they were, and that they were specialized to a degree that they do, um, you know, seminars on emotional regulation in traumatized PTSD suffering adopted children, which is a fairly big lie to get someone into bed. I told them at the time I couldn't even have sex with them if they were expert in trauma, but can't get in the way of what they wanted. Um, they used to mimic, they'd heard recordings of my heavily abusive female parent, and they used to mimic them at me and tell and then deny it for hours and then admit it and then pretend nothing happened. They they told me that I just didn't understand my police torture. Um, oh, that it was horrific things. When I said I just wanted a life not defined by abuse, I got this absolute fury reaction from them, telling me that I was a narcissist for not wanting my life defined by abuse. Jesus, there's a lot. There's so much. The punitive starvation to to disrupt the appeal, so they got complete control of my life, was pretty rough. The quoting my abusive female parent at me was horrific. Um, they forcing their fucking weird mentally ill lawyer PhD patient into my life. I mean, this is all stuff that should get someone struck off, but and this is all recorded by audio. But the court tells me I'm making it up. So it's all evidenced. Um, then they began, when I was trying to break up with them, they began terrorizing me. They knew I had very severe police brutality PTSD. They knew that it was bad. They'd seen me react. But what they did was they started telling me they started terrorizing me, that they were telling Helsinki police that I was psychotic, and that basically what I was trying to do was break up with them and get my belongings back. But they began terrorizing me with this. It was like they're not they're not a healthy person. They shouldn't be treating people. And I kept saying to them, like, don't tell the police that. That's not true. That's terrifying. You're trying to terrorize me. And I didn't want to meet them. They kept demanding to meet. I didn't want to meet them at all because I couldn't. They were too manipulative, and I couldn't trust being in the room. Only way I said I'd meet them is if there was a third person. I started contacting domestic abuse organizations and Safety Net, Nullina, Monica, Sophie Mannerheim, uh, the Cowpunky one on Mannerheim as well, then Miesiket. So every one of them I spoke to told me I was being abused, and I got told that I was being sex trafficked because all I was doing was cooking for her kids when I visited, or she was visiting me for sex, and while disrupting any legal resolution and demanding control of everything. That was where I lived, employment, future, my legal uh, cases, even normal medical treatment. She kept inserting false information into my medical records. Now it says that I apparently am some sort of cop attacking arsonist. She inserted that into my finished medical records, which means I can't really get normal treatment. I have all this weird gibberish lies from her from February when she breached my privacy. That was the other thing. No privacy. That was not a thing. Privacy didn't matter. Um, she doesn't believe in medical privacy, only for herself. She consistently used fear and manipulation of my PTSD to get things. That's how she got the first bag of documents. She wound me to the edge of a PTSD dysregulation, and it was like, well, these are your most important documents. Give them. So she got the bag of the most important documents and trotted off with it, and I never saw them again, including 36 or 7 years. I think maybe more, about 37 years of my medical records that were handwritten. She just ended me. I don't really know what she wanted, because it was something between a sex slave, really. That's all she wanted. Like someone who cooked for her children and she could fuck. And from the court case, I discovered that she obviously had some very weird stuff with wanting to. I mean, at the face of it, those were my older, coming close to elderly landlords, and she was getting turned on. This Finnish psychotherapist was getting turned on by the idea that she was involved in some scam of these elderly people. It's very fucking evil, but it was like that wasn't the reality. I mean, around the time which was Christmas, she did a lot of the escalating happened from around October onwards, when she told me she had the power of life and death over me and got to decide when I died. It's from around that point where she starts quoting and mimicking the recordings of my abusive parent, and everything is this hot cold whirlwind. I remember I spoke to course of control abuse expert Kate Amber, who burst into tears at the scale of this Finnish central Helsinki-based psychotherapist's abuse of me. I think I major flipped out in October when she started with the trying to needle me about the child abuse, and I think I emailed her colleague, who she was trying to get to give me psychotherapy, which obviously didn't work because I was very focused on euthanasia at the time, because I was in this enforced horrible legal situation that I shouldn't have been in, where I didn't have a lawyer and she wouldn't help me get a lawyer, and I'd been banned from legal aid, and she was just watching me sort of work myself to death trying to defend myself in Finnish, and without any legal training. It's what the Finnish court's done to me is because of the passing, and it's horrific. That was about it. I think it was at this that was when it really began with the refusing to return things, I think. But after several hours of being hardcore berated by her about my abuse trauma, and with her siding with my abuser, telling me I just didn't understand, trying to tell me that I didn't understand having my wrists and hands, my wrists and thumbs broken, it was. I'm probably not doing it justice for how horrific it was. But then, I was trapped, and she had so much control that she got her way back in, and she sort of dictated a letter of retraction that she forced me to write to her colleague. Or colleagues, I can't remember. I was very horrified, and that was when I realized how trapped I was, and I began trying to figure out how to escape, because the gaps between the financial domestic violence, which was severe, fabricated loans that didn't exist, that I was paying money for, that she was lying about, that she was then used to berate me about. These loans that didn't, Norwegian bank loans that didn't exist, that I thought I was paying. Basic loan fraud and financial domestic violence. And it was really, uh, by October, when people met me, like Tekla Lindy from Boot Hill, they were like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I think she's trying to murder me." And that was true, because the deprivation she put me through at Christmas, and the psychological abuse, and the terrorizing me about the Helsinki police and police raids. She she was trying to get me to kill myself. She was obsessed with where my probate documents were, and when she did finally force her way back into my life, she was just obsessed with the fact that I hadn't killed myself, and the fact was that there'd been an accident. I followed the advice of the domestic abuse organizations, and I filed police complaints with Pasila. These were short, long, very long, medium. I tried every which way to get help. I tried detailed, I tried not detailed. There was pressing time limits, and I needed my legal documents back. Pasila instead decided to take it up and become abusive about it. The responses I got were taunting. I was never interviewed. Uh, it was impossible, really. Like you're completely alone as a male presenting person, and all the time she was taunting me about I'm going to send you to prison, and the police, and telling the police I had psychosis. She turned up on my doorstep out of the blue one afternoon to shout at me about reporting her to the police, and use mocking voices to taunt me about going to domestic abuse organizations for her abuse. It was horrific. This is a horrific person. Everything of reactive abuse they could have used. They bullied me into putting my phone into their company, my phone contract. Then they refused to return it. And the only way I could gain, then they told me they were limiting parts of the package, turning off MMS messaging and stuff. So the only way I could regain control of my own phone, was to say, either give it back to me or terminate it. And rather than give me my own phone number back, she terminated it. This began her how would you describe it? Her false reports to the police, as that were retaliations for when I put in valid theft complaints. That began her using police violence. She figured out means to, like, basically get me raided by the police, what to lie about, how many lies she needed to add to the bundle each time to get me raided. Sometimes she'd accuse me of theft. So you see that was the hell I was trapped in. I had this Finnish psychotherapist who knew trauma, who was had knew I had severe police brutality trauma, who had me trapped in a situation where I couldn't leave the home I rented from. Oh, yeah, that was another one. When the first raid happened, she refused to repair the door, although as she was my landlord. She had told me that forcing me to live without a security lock was an acute form of social and psychological torture. So she knew that, and she told me that, so she knew I knew what she was doing to me. But she figured that no one else would believe me and no one else would know what she was doing. But that's one of the ways she tortured me, because she knew I couldn't leave the apartment, because I couldn't go anywhere, because she'd obstructed the landlord's case. So she just tortured me in the apartment psychologically, trying to get me to kill myself. It's just a pity I failed, or was interrupted, or so you have someone who has medically documented severe fear, trauma of police due to being tortured, sexually assaulted, sexually tortured, sexually humiliated. And first she terrorized me with that she was telling them lies. Then she began using them as to bludgeon me. So you can imagine how terrifying things and how incoherent things became. So the first raid was the 12th of February. And that became my life. I was raided every couple of months. She would threaten it and then raise up the terror, while she kept me trapped in a situation where I had to keep begging for the employment thing to be resolved, the Norwegian bank loans to be resolved, and to get my belongings back, which she returned in drips and drabs. She copied abuse that my female parent had put me through as well, knowing that no one else, not the Finnish courts, not the police would know, like stuff, the way she returned the documents. So it was like an all-out psychological aerial bombardment. But I always thought that it was particularly evil and particularly horrific, that she knew that I had permanent injuries from police torture, and that was her means. That's what she went to first. Just constant, like, lying about the situation to get me raided again and again. The first one, she co-opted my Irish case, the landmark legal victory, told them all sorts of crazy lies about arson and attacking police officers, which obviously opened the door for the corrupt Irish police officers. You know, and her lying about me and darvoing my Irish case ensured that I was treated with the most extreme level of violence, and that's what she got off on. After the first one, she told me she didn't realize how badly it would affect me, and she promised she'd never do it again. And then within about a week, she was threatening it again, because I was just going, all I wanted was resolution and exit, because it was too crazy and too abusive. I'll get into some of the other stuff after this. This is probably a bit too long, but like, it's very difficult to talk about. But I'm leaving a record because I'm at the end of my life. The person has abused me to the point where I'm homeless in Paris and I have no rights. And I have a Finnish court accusing me of, like, essentially time travel. That's how corrupt it is. So, thanks for listening.